Hey, everybody, it is Jay Stone, and it is time for another episode of Both Laugh, the Dying Scene Quarantine Chat Show. It is episode 46, and our guest today is Lars Frederiksen. And this is a really good episode. Not to pat myself on the back, but we had a very wide-ranging conversation that dealt with divorce and death of parents and death of friends and new music and all of that through the spectrum of, now, you know what? Just listen to it yourself. It's right after the intro music. All right, so it should be time for another episode of Both Laugh, the Dying Scene Quarantine Chat Show, which is what we're still calling it, even though we're not really in quarantine anymore. And our guest this week theoretically needs no introduction. And as much as I think it would be funny if I just left it there and we started talking, if you've been even a little bit aware of the punk rock scene and the broad spectrum of music that we call punk over the last 30 years or so, you're no doubt familiar with them, whether it's through Old Firm Casuals, Oxley's Midnight Runners, Stomper 98, Lars Frederiksen and the Bastards, obviously Rancid. Ladies and gentlemen, the pride of Campbell, California, Mr. Lars Frederiksen.
Thank you very much. Well,
Yeah,
you forgot, but you forgot the last resort.
I forgot the last resort. I forgot probably a lot of things because you've been in so many things.
You know what that's called? At the end of the day, that's called being unhappily married. That's what happens when. No, but I won't trivialize it. But no, the last resort. We're actually putting out a brand new record on December the 4th. It drops.
How did I miss that entirely?
Well, it's kind of because a lot of the times, since the record company's European and it's an English band, a lot more focus is over there. Plus, they're it's not like anybody's chasing them down, because they're a lot 40-year-old band, but still going strong, and I'm pretty stoked because like that was one of that first record, Skinhead Anthems, changed my life in a lot of ways, and now to be in the band and making music with these guys, it's fucking insane. But thank you for the nice introduction.
Yeah, so I'll sort of jump around a little bit, but building on that, so how did you record with it? If you've got a new album coming out in December, did you get together and record in person? Have you been able to do that, or has it been sort of virtual? Or?
Well, what we did is we actually recorded the record before the pandemic broke, so back in 2019, and it actually, you know what? I could be wrong. It could have been early 2020. Okay, but I'm not too. I can't fucking remember.
It's been forever. The pandemic has melted everybody's brains.
I want to say maybe it was 2019, but I feel like it was the winter time. So I could have been in November 2019. It was roughly before. It might have been December. I can't remember, but it was really fast, because JJ and Mick, the drummer, they're so good. And they've been, Mick, JJ was in the business, Anti-Nowhere League, he's been in a lot of those bands over there. So, and he's just a very accomplished musician, and Mick is an accomplished musician. Of course, then there's Roy, is just an amazing vocalist, and he's got his own style. You kind of know when you hear The Last Resort, it's The Last Resort by the vocal, So, but we got together and we did the record over a span of 5 days. And I think the first 3 days as we recorded, I think 13 songs, I think 11 made the record. Wow. And, we had an idea, like I had a bunch of songs that I had written for them, but I couldn't really fully realize them until I sat and, we never really wrote together. Like me and Roy kind of, when I would do shows with them, we would always share a room. So, because he's like one of my old friends, and so we know each other. And, he would come up with these little one-liners or whatever. And I'd just be like, what did you just say? And he'd go, because we were talking about something. He goes, better stick to the devil you know than the devil you don't. And I was like, what did you just say? And he's like, better stick to the devil you know than the devil. I said, that's a fucking song. And, and I would pick up my guitar and I would kind of put some chords around it or whatever. And then that's kind of how it all kicked off. And then JJ had ideas, and Mick would come in with some lyrical ideas and stuff. So it was a really cool group effort. And I feel since we've all been doing it for 30 fucking years,
Yeah.
it kind of came together, and I think we made a really, really solid record. Like it's very doom and gloom, you know, it's very kind of Black Sabbath-y, you know, because I always thought they were kind of like the Black Sabbath of Oi, you know.
Yeah, right.
So they had that kind of hard, you know, heavy thing, and we really kind of did that kind of thing there with it. So I'm hoping people will be stoked on it. But for me, it's just like, you know, it's like a dream, you know.
Is it coming out physically or digitally? Because I
Yeah.
know everything's been so backed up the last year or so, but
yeah, I think it comes out on the 4th. I think that's all formats.
that's awesome. I'll
Yeah.
plug that when the time comes. But
Cool.
so let's start sort of the way that I start most episodes, because this show, if that's what you want to call it, started during the pandemic. It started kind of as a way of sort of keeping in touch with people who had to cancel a lot of plans and sort of adapting to the new reality. And especially when we weren't sure what reality was going to be. Granted,
Right.
a year and a half later, we're still not really sure what reality is going to be. But I like to start with what was sort of going on with you in the early stages of the pandemic. I know that you had like just played your first solo show, like essentially the week before the world stopped. But so what reminds people what the year would have looked like for you if the world hadn't shut down?
Well, here's the thing. Like in 2019, in May, my then wife at the time asked me for, well, I sort of asked each other for a divorce.
Yeah.
And my mom was also sick the second time with cancer. So, but it was manageable. She ended up beating it. So when 2020 hit, you know, obviously the pandemic happened, and I'm kind of getting divorced. You know, I'm not living at my house. I'm sort of couch surfing
Yeah.
through all of this.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, staying where I could, you know, whether it be, you know, a hotel or mostly out on the road. So once everything on the road started to stop, and I finally kind of got a place that was kind of, you know, sort of consistent living space, I was kind of dealing with all that personal stuff, you know, so that was happening. And you know, we had the Dropkicks tour. Rancid had the Dropkicks tour at that time. I had gigs with Stomper 98 booked. I had gigs with The Last Resort booked. I had some more of the solo shows booked. As a matter of fact, I was on the plane to Boston to do the St. Patrick's Day gigs with the Dropkick Murphys. I think there was 3 or 4 with the old firm, and then 2 by myself, maybe. I can't remember.
That sounds right. Yeah.
So, and I remember I was on the plane, and I was like, I should probably get the internet on this flight. And I think, thankfully I did, because I never do that because I think it's too expensive. And I've said this in every single fucking interview. So, but I ended up getting it. And so, and I was with my partner, and because her family, she was born and raised in Cape Cod. So her parents were in Florida at the time. So we thought, well, we'll just stay on the Cape, and then I'd just come back and forth, and that saves money and so on and so forth. And so we're flying into Boston, and every hour on the hour, another gig was getting canceled. They were pulling the gigs. So when we landed in Boston, me and Joanna, like by the time that I got the rental car to drive us to the Cape, the tour had been canceled. So now we're like stuck with, okay. So now I'm on the phone with like the booking agent, who also, Stormy, who does Rancid too.
Sure.
And she's like, yeah, we're hoping, you know, as of right now, this is what's going on. We don't really know, but if you can get home, try to get home as soon as possible. That's all I knew, right? So, but now I'm like, well, you know, do we stay here on the Cape because there's nobody fucking here, right? Because it's the winter time, or you know, it's before
March,
the season.
Yeah.
So, or do we, you know, try to hustle back? And I said, well, at least we have a rental car. So worst case scenario, you know, we'll drive cross country if they shut down the airlines. And then she's like, well, what if they shut down the gas stations? I'm like, well, fuck, I've been to the Midwest. I don't want to be stuck there. No,
Yeah,
no,
right.
no offense.
Right.
No offense, but I don't want to be stuck out there, you know, in Wyoming or whatever, because some of those highways are so desolate, right?
Right.
And I just pictured like the Red Roof Inn in the middle of Wyoming. I'm like, what the fuck? You know, so we hunkered down for about a week. And then when we got back, you know, it's not like I could come and see the kids. I could go see my mom. Because nobody knew what was going down. So I just kind of stayed with my partner at the time. And then, you know, when that wasn't available to me, I would go and try to get into a hotel or whatever it was, but everything was fucked. So, and they were trying to shelter a lot of the homeless people here in town and give them hotel rooms, which I thought was pretty fucking rad.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Keep them safe and stuff.
Yeah.
So like, you know, there was a few times where I might have taken a little nap in my car, let's just say. And it's so funny because I felt like this hobo with a platinum record.
Right.
So I just thought the irony and like, what's the lesson here? Like, what is the fucking lesson here?
Well, talk about coming full circle from the early days of growing up a young punk rocker.
But that's the thing. I was it's whether I like it or not, I've been trained to do exactly this.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like this is how I live, you know. It's just I'm a vagabond, right? I mean, you know, so it like my mom, so all of a sudden, like everything started to kind of switch, like, okay, now we're going to push these tours to October, September. Okay. And my mom got her third bout of cancer. And this time she was just like, I never went down there to see her because, you know, they were said, stay away. So for 2 months I didn't see her. And then one day I called her and it took her like 3 days to call me back. And I actually had a friend down there go and check on her. And she said, you know, she's doing okay, but she wasn't. Mm-hmm. So I said, fuck it, I'm going to go down there. So I said, come on, we got to go. I don't care about any of this. I got to go check on her. And thank God we did. Because I thought she was dead on the couch, you know? Wow. And so I walked in the door and she's not moving. And I'm trying to see if she's breathing. And I could barely get her up because she did this chemo that on her whole body. And it basically took the life out of her. You know, it's funny how we can send a man to Mars or to the moon and we can't cure cancer yet. And it's just like, it makes you think about who's controlling the fucking world. And it's, you know, obviously the big pharmaceutical companies that want to keep you sick and want to keep you dependent on them. I mean, they're the biggest drug dealers in the world. And Absolutely. It's not a conspiracy theory. That's just the truth. It's like, you can see, you turn on your fucking TV, see how many commercials you get about drugs. You know what I mean? So
as somebody who works firsthand in the addiction treatment industry. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I've been sober 28 years, you know, and it's like, I see how these like little things, these little epidemics pop up, whether it be the oxys and the fentanyl and all that shit. And it's like, come on, this is like, and then even the food, you're talking about the food, and it's not like, and I hate when people like come back, well, that's just you just being blah, blah, blah. But it's just like, well, no, it's just the fucking truth. Like you look at the fucking science, the genetically modified, all this fucking shit that is not good with us, all the fucking corn and the soy that they put in the food that makes you fat and unhealthy. I'm sorry, it does.
And dependent on it, likes to have to go back to it because of what it does to your blood sugar.
That's the game. Yeah. If I'm in, it's like being a musician. I put out a good record or try to put out a good record so you come see the show. Like, you know, I mean, it's not just as simple as that. I mean, I'm a musician for a lot of other reasons, but that's part of the process, right? So if I'm a fucking corporation, I'm going to make your light bulbs not last as long as they used to because I will need you to buy more. If I'm going to make you fucking fat and sick and all these people have like you got, your leg twitches, then you need this pill, but it might cause you chronic diarrhea, throwing up your fucking guts and shitting out of your neck. It's like,
well, yeah, but there's pills for those things too.
True. So you can counterbalance that, right? But anyways, not to get quiet. So anyway, my mom's basically said, I don't want to do this anymore. And I'm not to trivialize the pandemic or what we were in, but like, I'm sort of happy that it happened because it really slowed me down because I was able to kind of focus in on like like, okay, so I used to think that like loss, like when someone died, that in some way I would like personalize that. And watching my mom, because every time I dealt with a death in my life, it was always pretty immediate. It was like either an OD, a murder, a suicide, or whatever it was. You know, it was very immediate. And like in anybody who died, like my brother died from a cardiac arrest, right? Because his heart was enlarged 3 times the size of a normal heart, right? So his body was working overtime. So he had a heart attack and just died on the spot. So it was always very immediate, is my point.
Yeah.
And so being able to walk and sort of do this like kind of journey, if I can call it, to the next, you know, to Valhalla, as she would like to say,
Sure.
you know, it kind of made me realize that this is not happening to me. This is happening to her. It's just something I got to deal with, right? So I'm already separating myself right there and kind of realizing that and maturing in a way, because it's part of the thing that we're doing here. It's like no one gets off, everybody gets off at that same bus stop. That's why I always think the things of like race, religion, and creed, and everybody fights.
Yeah.
It's such bullshit. It's
right.
like just death should teach you that. It's like
right.
we're all the fucking same, right? It doesn't matter. It fucking
no one gets out alive.
Matter.
Yeah.
It just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. And it's like what your race or what God, or you know, who you want to sleep with, or how you want to dress, or how you want to identify. I don't give a fuck. Like we're all gonna die. Who cares? Live your best fucking life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So having all these realizations, and I always knew that part, but my point is that this other thing, like, you know, I would always kind of take these things a little bit personally, right? And separating myself and watching her transition to whatever may be the next, you know, it kind of it was like a sense of comfort, but it also helped me let go of a lot of the shit. And it's like I realized, oh fuck, I got all these vampires in my life and all these hanger-ons, and you know, I don't want to talk mad shit about people, and I won't, because I got a little class, but like a lot of those negative relationships that I had been in, and some of it had been in for a very long time, started to shed.
Yeah.
And it was like I wasn't even doing anything to do that. All I was doing was having these realizations, and then I was getting like more spiritual, in the sense that I've always been a very spiritual person, but like then just reconnecting with that, and like in a major way. Like I've always been super connected with my pagan roots, my imagery, everything. Like you kind of know where I stand.
Of course, yeah.
When it comes to that stuff, you know, the rune symbols, the things like that, you know, that are very important to me, that I believe in, that are powerful and they're magical to me, right? I know that sounds pretty fucking corny. I want a 25-year-old me would have punched me right in the face. But my point is that like where I was with this watching her die, like, and being there, like I ended up going down there and living with her for like basically the last 6 months of her life in Campbell. So I'm back in Campbell, my own stomping ground.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm just getting those same fucking feelings, and I'm like telling people to fuck off, and I'm like, you want to fight, you want to go, like because you know, it's just that's what happens to me down there. I gotta leave because there's you know, the sun is too hot. I think it burns my brain. I'm Danish. I'm supposed to be out in the wilderness,
exactly,
in the snow,
right.
You know, hunting with my pet wolf. You know what I mean, in a loincloth. So like, you know, I started kind of facing a lot of these things, and then not being with my kids as much as I wanted to be, and then leaving my home that I, you know, had built, you know, I had been living in for the last 20 plus years, and leaving, you know, then realizing, oh shit, my brother's gone, and you know, all these friends are gone, and how many divorces or how many marriages I missed, or deaths I couldn't make it to, or all these things that like were coming and spinning and hitting me, and all at that same time, because I was so slowed down now. I had no distractions.
Right.
I was stuck with myself. And, you know, it wasn't the first time that this happened. I sort of knew what the process was going to be. But I kind of really sat with it for the first time, and really just, and was willing to like, let it all come in. And it's funny because I let it all go. I let the kids go. I let the house go. I let money go. I let family go. I let all these things go. And it's so funny how that all comes right back. You know, it's like, it's like it was my relationship with all these things.
Yeah.
And it's like the Gods and Guns song. It's like, I mean, if you want me to get into it, you know, I can. If you had a question about it, I can save it.
You can keep going. That's fine. I truthfully, and not to blow smoke up your ass, I could listen to you tell stories all day. So
thank you. Well, I mean, I'll segue this into the Gods and Guns thing, because
so I'll start it by this. So
okay.
For those that don't know, I like to be I pretend I'm Conan or whatever. Like, I wish. not on my
Right.
best day. I'm not tall enough or redheaded enough.
Wow.
Lars has a new solo album. That's kind of what we're here talking about. It's out on Pirates
Yes.
Press Records soon. I don't know exactly what the release date is because I think those
November
are all,
26th. November.
there you
26th.
go, November 26th. It's called To Victory, and it's awesome. And when he says Gods and Guns, the first song on there, which some of you probably know anyway, is Gods and Guns. And so now you can sort of go into that.
Well, originally I recorded that song with the Old Firm Casuals. And it took place over in England where I wrote the song. And I wrote the song maybe about a year or so before we actually had a chance to record it because we had so much other stuff. And I was staying with my friend Nick, who was working at this place called Skunx Tattoo. I was over there doing a little tattoo thing. And Nick has an affinity for Gretsch guitars like I do. And when I walked into my room, because I'm staying with him, he's got an old Gretsch White Falcon. The case is open. It has a nice little note, says "Enjoy. Hope you can be creative while you're here," because he's my homeboy. And my man Nick is amazing because he's had the most amazing life. You think that, some people have, he joined the French Foreign Legion and he was fucked up when he did it. So he joined the because there's two parts. There's the English speaking and then there's the French speaking.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
He didn't speak French, but he joined the French one. So, and he became a paratrooper. Well, anyways.
Holy shit.
They give you a new name and a whole new identity. It's like legit what you hear. And so he's got all these mad, crazy stories because he was an old football hooligan. But anyway, and he had to get out of the country.
Yeah.
So, we were talking about, because he doesn't drink or do drugs anymore. So we were kind of talking about, our experience, because he was an orphan, by the time he was 2 or 3 years old. And my dad was the same. And my mom grew up in Nazi-occupied Denmark in World War II. And
sure,
saw her family get killed when she was like 5. It's just like gnarly shit, traumatic shit.
Yeah.
Not, not what people are calling trauma these days. Like real traumatic shit
that we can't even comprehend unless you've
right. And I'm sure that there's people out there that have dealt with that kind of stuff. And that's hardcore. And they have the right to use that word.
Mm-hmm.
But so we were talking about how we come into this world and our parents lie to us from basically day one, kind of how the fact that they tell us there's Santa Claus, they tell us there's the Easter Bunny, they tell us if we play with it for too long, we go blind,
right?
The whole fucking gamut, right? And it's like, and then you're constantly being told you're to do these certain things a certain way. And it's like, it's not the whole truth, right? So and I didn't really have that experience to a certain degree. Like my mom was very social and, very liberal. So, it was always very accepting, and it was always very open-minded. And she had gay friends and, people of different colors and different religions. She didn't care about any of that. And I think that's one of the good things that we took, that moral compass, of knowing the difference between right and wrong. So I never really saw race, religion, or creed or any of that stuff until later on in life, when I was exposed to the real world, right?
Yeah, right.
So, and I sort of kind of saw it was a lot about finances too. It was very economics, you know what I mean? And how, whatever, that's a whole other thing. So the Gods and Guns thing, like I had the idea for the song, and I say, it's fucked up, but I'm right.
Yeah.
And that's almost a tongue-in-cheek thing, because I actually say that to my kids when I'm telling them to do something, and I'll be like, well, it's fucked up, but I'm right. So go do it. Yeah.
Right.
So, and I understand that you're uncomfortable, but you're going to have to deal with that, being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And we started talking about like the experience that, how we're seeing the world, and maybe it's an old school view, or maybe it's outdated. I don't fucking care, because I'm 50 and I don't give a shit what anybody says anymore.
Right.
So, but we're talking about just how participation trophies, and just because you show up and you played on this team, here's your reward. It's such bullshit. It's like, how about fucking winning something to get a trophy, or showing a little grit to get recognized?
Right.
Not just, it's like, but anyways, it's
society,
I get it. It's the culture, right? Yeah. So, and I think it's from people from a certain era have this idea, right? And now everybody has a voice, right? And some people who should never have been allowed to have one, right. Including myself.
And they're all considered equal, is the thing. Yeah,
but it's like people just grab onto catchphrases or clickbait and then form opinions. And then, if you say something it's just stupid. The whole fucking thing's stupid. And it's like, go back to the original thing. We all get off at that same fucking bus stop.
Right.
What are you tripping about?
Right.
Why do you got to fucking do this shit? Why are you worried about this shit? Go
Right.
live your fucking life, you know, go take a vacation, you know,
Yeah.
but get a girlfriend, get a boyfriend, get a whatever friend, you know, like, so the Gods and Guns thing, it was a song I kind of wrote for my kids. And it was like this thing where I was kind of like, well, the world isn't a safe place. I'm sorry, it's not. It can be, you know, but where you're going to find security and where you're going to find love and where you're going to find acceptance is not from out there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, you know, people see it as an unsafe place or a safe place, right? So if we're coddling everybody and they're not falling down and scraping their knees, if they're not going through any challenges or any obstacles or having to climb over any speed bumps, then how the fuck are they going to be fucking out in the world and living? Like, if you take all that away from them, they have no opportunity to mature. And then they have this sense of entitlement, like they're owed something, right?
Right.
And it's like, I'm not going to teach my children that way. I'm sorry, I'm not. Like, they're going to have triumphs and tribulations. They will. But it's like, if I'm trying to take them, of course, I'm going to try to keep them as innocent as possible for as long as possible.
Right.
But I can't stop the gangster rap from my 10-year-old listening to it.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
That's what he loves.
Yeah.
And how is his dad with a fucking tattoo on his forehead who said fuck more times on a record than probably anybody he knows,
right,
is going to tell him he can't listen to that.
Right.
I can't do that. It's art.
Yep.
You know, it's their art. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to censor anybody's art. I'm not going to censor anybody's humor. I'm not going to censor anybody's thoughts. That's just not, that's fascism when you do that. That is fucking fascism. And you can do that being a left wing or a right wing guy.
Oh, absolutely.
You can do it.
Yep, absolutely.
You know what I mean? So the point I was trying to make with them is like, look at that connection that you have to the outside world. If you're trying to find security, love, and all that stuff, you're never going to find it. It's always going to be the illusion. You're going to get tangled up in the bullshit thinking that you have to have this car, have this girl or whatever, have these shoes, have this, have that to make your life better. Sure, some of these things do make you help you enjoy life a little bit better, but they don't make your life better.
Yeah, right. What
makes your life better is in here. So if you understand the difference between right and wrong, right? And if you understand, if you can acquire a good moral compass, and that means treat every man, every woman, every person, right, on an equal footing from the very moment. And if they fuck you, then you can make a judgment. It's not a judgment on everybody who looks like that, talks like that, dresses like that, whatever.
Right.
It's about that individual, right? Because we have a thing, I think, in this culture is we take one thing and we demonize it. Yeah. We demonize it so hard that like it no longer can, you know, it's like if you have hate here and I see that with you, you know, whether it be hate for your brother or hate for this or hate for that, I let you experience that, because there's no way for you to grow and to mature if I try to take that from you. If I stifle that in you, if I say you're wrong and I say you're wrong and I say you're wrong, what the fuck do you think you're going to do? You're going to go, fuck you, Dad.
Exactly. Right.
I'm smart enough to know that. My mom tried to stop me from being punk when I was 10.
Yeah.
Guess what? 50, still doing it. So do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So I just let them have their moments. Whether I think it's right or wrong, I let them have their moments. I can try to teach them better, right? So they have to find it in here in order to be good out there, right? So that was my whole point with that song. You can't cling to this shit, right? It's all about here. And this is where you're going to find the true peace, in my experience.
Sure. So why you started, there's a mention in the liner notes about that you recorded like 16 songs, I think, at first for this project. Yeah. How did you go about even starting the process of whittling down everything in the Lars Frederiksen catalog to what would work well for solo, and then which 6 to put on this?
Well, it actually started not with that initial, what you're having in your hands was actually the third concept.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I went in there because, you know, I was, like I said, I was going through a divorce and I was going through my mom's stuff and sort of figuring that all out. And like I said, getting back into, the spirituality, this connection I had, and just kind of feeling like just giving it all away. I was just like, fuck it, dude, just have it all. I don't care. It doesn't, like I said, last bus stop.
Yeah.
So I went in there and I had like 35 songs that I had been writing. I just, for whatever reason, I've always been pretty prolific as a songwriter. And now that I have like 5 or 6 channels to do that, you can now see that. I used to do that with my production. That's where I produced 30 records, but so now that I had more avenues to do that, I had all these songs. And I'm like, well, what's right for this band, or what's right for this band, or kind of those things. And there was a few that I had written that were better for maybe this band or whatever. But I had like, 10 of these, 12 of these fully sort of realized. I mean, if they weren't fully realized, they were 98% fully realized. So I just kind of went in and I recorded them, just me, click track, the guitar, and I would do the lyrics, and I didn't concentrate on getting them all right or singing it perfectly or whatever. So I recorded all these brand new ideas, right? And then at the same time I had done that show. Now we're in the pandemic, and I was like, well, wait a second. And there was still at the time, it was still a hope of like, oh, maybe we can push these shows. So I thought, well, maybe I got time to go in and kind of maybe bang out. This is kind of happening while I'm doing this other thing. And maybe that now I can get something out. Maybe I'll do some cover songs and I'll record these and then see what's the best. And then people can leave with something that was kind of like what I just did on the stage, this Billy Bragg kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
So that was kind of in the middle of getting these other songs onto tape and to kind of get them sort of just down and you can move on. And so I started recording, like I did another 16. So the 6 that are on that first EP are I thought were the ones that translated the best out of the ones that I did in this kind of dynamic. Because when I did that show at Eli's, first of all, I didn't think I was going to have a sellout show. Secondly, I thought maybe 100 people would be there. And third, I thought, well, maybe I could just kind of experiment there.
Yeah.
Which after I found out it was a sold out show, I was like, oh shit, I gotta get serious.
Yeah, right.
And it sold out in like 6 hours. Like it blew my mind. So, and I did some songs up there at the show and I was like, this is not really translating as I thought it would be, or I thought it could. And so Skunx went over really well. Motherland went over really well. I did Coming Home That Night with Matt Freeman. That went over really well. And I did a Ramones song. I did the UK sub song, and that sub song went over well. It's kind of like we're calling it an evening with Lars Frederiksen. So I would do a few Rancid songs, some Bastard songs that I hadn't played in literally however long, 2005, right? So 15, 16 years or whatever. And I would kind of give people like, Saint Mary, this, we wrote this song. Matt used to have a Virgin Mary on the dash of the red van on our first tour. And it was kind of like a good luck charm for us. So anytime that we did a van tour, that even if we sold the van or got rid of the van, that Mary came with us. It's like we're very superstitious as a band, believe it or not. But
it works.
Yeah. And then we were listening to a lot of like Johnny Cash at the time. And I grew up in a Mexican neighborhood and it was primarily Mexican. And I saw how loyal the women were, and see how they loved their men like really hard, you know what I mean? And I didn't necessarily know if I felt that experience in I don't know how to explain it, but just the connection. I was always, I guess I was a romantic maybe. So the lyrics kind of came from this place and what I envisioned and what I, imagined. And also was about this one girl who I won't tell, because I was with her, but she ended up screwing me. So I don't want to give her any credit. Right. But basically she told me she was pregnant and then I was going to do the right thing. And this is when I was in my teens still. And then it turned out like, 5 months later, she wasn't really showing.
Oh, damn.
And anyways.
Oh, damn.
So, yeah. So, anyway, and I was just kind of tell these stories, like how the songs came about, like where we were and whatever came in my mind about the memories. Cause sometimes we'd be playing with Rancid up there and we'll be playing like Rejected. I'm like, fuck, do you remember the Loft? Fuck. I'm like, fuck. And you remember when we shot the fucking Hyena video?
Yeah.
Like, remember Brett Reed's fucking, Impala and just whatever it was, and just these things that were popping in my brain, like things I hadn't thought about forever, or when we would play Wolves and, when we played Jenny DeMilo, I just remember how me and Tim sang it. Like we were in the same room at the same time. We had a piece of glass in between the two microphones and we were singing it, going back. That's why it's so
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It's like, because we're in it together,
Yeah,
it's
right.
like, if and just like these little things, and someone, I was reading like one of my posts, I posted something and some guy goes, explain it how a cat lies awake when it sleeps.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just thought that was the funniest shit ever. And I think I said science or something like,
Yeah.
but like, it's about like, it's the cat napping. You kind of sleep with one eye open,
Right.
how cats do.
Right.
That's what we were trying to describe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I have heard that
how
song 7,000 times, whatever it is. I had never even it never even factored in. I went, oh shit, that guy, he's got a point there.
But and that's the
Never
thing. It's
thought
like,
about it. Yeah.
I think in avenues and alleyways, I said pits the dogs against the cats. Now we laugh hysterically. We actually, when we play that live, we stop it so we can really bring it home. But it was like, that's like 5 a.m. trying to finish up the lyrics. I'm just trying to think about blacks versus whites, gays versus straight, dogs versus cats. This is genius, and then we sang it and then it's like, it's out. You can't change it,
Right.
So, but I was trying to describe like, let's just unify, but I'm going to say dogs versus cats. Like everybody knows dogs and cats don't get along.
Of
right?
course.
I don't know what I was fucking saying, but whatever, I said it. And we always laugh about it. Like we think that it's like, we've had better days, we've had better moments, but we were so fucking tired trying to get that record done. Like shit came out of our, whatever.
Right.
But then great things like Time Bomb. Like you think about Out Come the Wolves, there was 5 songs that weren't on the original recording that we went back in and recorded more. Those songs were Journey to the End of the East Bay, The Way I Feel About You, The War's End, Disorder and Disarray, and 11th Hour. So those songs weren't initially thought to be on the record. And Tim said, I got a couple riffs. I think we need to do them. So we just, and I had a little Sammy and we just did it. And it's like, all of a sudden it's like, oh, now it's the record. So the original thing, they weren't going to include these 5 songs. Could you imagine Out Come the Wolves without those 5 songs?
No, absolutely not.
So, and Journey to the End of the East Bay, are you
right.
fucking kidding me? 11th Hour is the second song on the record, So it's like, things the way that they happen, whatever. And we're totally off topic, but I forgot what the question was because I got lost in Jenny DeMilo and the comment.
Yeah, boy, I don't remember what the question was either, but it sort of brought up a few other ones. But so we started sort of down that road by talking about that first solo show, and then sort of all the other shows get canceled. But as being somebody who had played thousands of shows at that point with a variety of different bands over 30 years, but having a sold out solo Lars Frederiksen show at that point, is that a different sort of nerves for you? I mean, playing by yourself with just the guitar, and how to even approach being a solo artist after this long? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, that's so funny because it all goes back down to Dan Hodge. 10 years ago, Dan started off as my guitar tech in Rancid, and then he tour managed the first Bastards tour, and then he started working for then he like worked his way, became our tour manager. Now he's our manager.
Yeah.
And it's like it just went up to the chain of command. And about 10, maybe longer ago, and he was on the road and he's like, dude, you should really do like a Billy Bragg thing. Like, I think it'd be awesome. Cause I think in the middle of the shows, I was either doing To Have and To Have Not or Little Sammy or both. There was shows where I would do both. And so he suggested to me, I said, nah, man, I'm a band guy. Like, I don't, whatevs. And then I started kind of thinking like, so, and this is all, he had mentioned it to me before we had done the Garden show. And I sort of then blew him off again. And we were talking about something and he mentioned it, I blew him off. And then I realized playing the Garden was like, so, everybody has a bucket list, right?
Yeah,
and
sure.
It's like the unachievable things that you'll think that you'll never do.
Right.
And I had 3 of them. One was playing Saturday Night Live, check.
Yeah.
Playing the Oakland Coliseum, did it twice, so check. and then Madison Square Garden. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? So all of them are checked off, right? So I was like, well, I need a new bucket list. And then I started thinking, well, fuck, like, I kind of started thinking about it. Well, what if I did something like that, you know? And so I called up Dan and I said, well, okay, I'm, you know, I know I shut you down every single time you've ever brought this up to me, but what do you see it as? And he goes, dude, I think you could, it's simple as this. You go up there, you just do your thing, you tell your stories, whatever it is, you just have fun with it. And for whatever reason, and I just started thinking about it, I was like, I'm nearly 50 years old. Most of the things that I've ever wanted to accomplish or didn't even know I wanted to accomplish in my life, most importantly, the stuff in here, I'm working my way there, or I've done it professionally or whatever it was. I said, if I don't do it fucking now, if I don't give it, you know, if I kind of say, and it kind of goes into like the way I'm thinking about the world. It's like, I feel like there's so many boundaries, right? There's so much separation. We can see it. It's pretty obvious to us,
sure,
right? And you separate yourself from people from race, creed, religion, all those things, the news networks that you watch, the whatever it is, you can find everybody, the wrestling programs, people are pro wrestling. There's like,
I sort of jumped out, and I know you're a huge wrestling fan. I sort of jumped off the wrestling thing, like it was WWF or NWA back, or WCW back in the day, and then it got like weird and crazy for a while. And I was sort of at the right age for it for a while, and then I kind of went, you know what, I think I need to step back from some of this. I was huge into it as a kid, but
well, now it's WWE versus AEW. It's like, and it's just like, fuck, it's just wrestling. Like, who gives a fuck? You're not a better person because you watch a particular show.
Yeah, right.
It's like, why are you looking for validation about, you know, championing some cause? It's fucking mind boggling to me. So all that separation, you know, it's all about the no, I nevers. No, I never will. No, and I started thinking about it to myself, like, you know, and with the no, I'm nevers or all that shit there's where the judgment is, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, and I feel like that's when it all kind of starts, because once you start getting an idea about something that you've never done, or someone that you've never spoken to, or something that person says that might be taken out of context, or maybe it is, whatever, it doesn't fucking matter. Once I start kind of going, I'm right, you're wrong, that's when the separation happens. That's why everything's so fucking polarized right now. And I don't want to be part of that. That's not my world. That's not the world I want to live in. I'm not saying I live in my own little world. I don't. I'm a realist, and I don't believe in utopia. I mean, honestly, the fucking dystopian society that we've been predicting in punk rock for the last fucking 50 years is here, ladies and gentlemen.
Right. Seriously.
You're welcome. So anyways, so it's like, you know, I mean, I wasn't going to do that anymore. I didn't really want to do that anymore. Like, I don't really have time or the patience. So, you know, I'm still can be a judgmental prick. I'm a fucking human being, right? So I'm not like, you know, fucking Buddha or Yoda or some shit. My point is that like I kind of started seeing how I was doing that in my own life, right? And it was and how I was doing that within my family, within certain things. I would know I'm never gonna do that. No, I would not want to go do that. No, I don't want to go to a PTA meeting. No, I don't want to. Why do I want to talk to a bunch of fucking squares in Patagonia and fucking Lululemons, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's like I started kind of separating myself, and then now I'm judging people driving Range Rovers. Like, why the fuck do you care, right?
Exactly, right.
Or a Prius.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, but there is a sense of entitlement that comes to that. But my point is, it's like I was separating myself from all this shit. And I was not only that, but then now I'm forming all these judgments. It's keeping me separate from my fellow fucking human beings who are having their own fucking experience, right? So, and who am I to get in the way of that? Who am I to get in the way of their own personal growth, you know? So, because that's what I'm about. I'm about growing from in here, right? So I said, fuck it. I'll fucking do it. I'll fucking do it. And then like I said, like I talked to Chris Powerhouse, who's godfather to both of my kids, and the guy I was living with at the time, who also promotes a lot of the local hardcore and punk shows here.
Sure.
And when I do stuff with the Casuals or whatever band, he's always involved because he's my brother, you know. So it's like I know that like it's like what he talks about his expenses, those are his expenses. It's not like some inflated,
right,
fucking bullshit, So I said, hey, what do you think about this? And he said, yeah. And he said, well, how many people do you want to book it on? I said, dude, maybe 100 people are going to show up. I really legit believe that. I didn't think many people would be interested. And, I don't know if it was self-doubt or just, humility. I don't really know. But like I said, it sold out in like 6 hours, and I was like, fuck. So that's kind of how it started to kind of happen with it. And it was all, I owe it all to Dan Hodge. Thanks, Dan.
It's, how did you settle on, and maybe settle is the wrong word, but on sort of an actual direction to take some of the songs, whether it's playing them solo or for the actual record? Because I mean, there's a lot of guys, it's the punk rock scene. And so for the last decade, especially, there's been a lot of guys who get out and grab a Martin acoustic and grow a beard and do that thing, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But there's that's not necessarily anybody's picture of Lars Frederiksen, obviously.
No. Well, and I think it's not that I consciously went in there and thought I'm not going to be the guy with the beard and the Martin, but I feel like I went in there saying, well, this is going to be more Billy Bragg, and Billy Bragg never held back.
Yeah, right.
I wasn't going to become Bob Dylan. I don't like Bob Dylan.
Right.
I mean, he's got a few good songs,
but
that's it. I'm not a Bob Dylan fan. Sorry. You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense to me. I do like a few of his tracks, Shelter from the Storm. I love that song, but I don't want to do folksy shit. I want to do something that's banging. And there's acoustic guitars on the record, but I also wanted to bring, this, I wasn't going to be like, in 82, I was the young one in the bunch.
But that's a thing that people do, right?
And that's fine, but that's not for me. I love aggressive music. And I feel like no matter how you strip it down, whether, for me, it was like, it's just as simple as the dirty guitar and my dirty ass wannabe Peter Criss voice. So that's what I wanted to if anything, that's kind of just what I wanted to do. It wasn't anything conscious. I'd had experiences, because Rancid did an acoustic kind of thing back with Dominoes.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like we were one of the first bands to kind of do that thing. I could be wrong, but I kind of felt like we were, and that's probably one of the reasons why we did it. But I kind of remember going in there and feeling like, seeing the different, having to change kind of things where I wasn't projecting as much and having to lay back a little bit, but still keeping that thing, And so I kind of learned it that way, because if I went too low, I just felt like it was boring. Like there's no grit to it. And I feel like punk music and this kind of style of music, it can be in this format, and it doesn't have to be less gritty. It's got to be, for me, I feel like the singers that I really love, no matter what kind of thing that they're doing, whether it be skinhead reggae or soul or fucking, blue beat or fucking punk rock or fucking thrash metal or fucking, look at Rob Halford. I mean, that dude just fucking goes for it, right?
Yeah, right.
And it doesn't matter what kind of song it is, you can still hear that grit in him, and it's aggressive. Even like a song like Don't Go, like if you think about it, it's like, it's a really, he's really putting it in there. And that to me seemed more viable with what I could do. Not that I don't think I'm that versatile, but I also think that wanting to bring that level of like, well, what you see is what you get, which is the truth. And that's the way I've always kind of lived my life. But if I brought that with it, then maybe that would be it. And like I said, I never really I did this kind of because I thought, well, when else am I going to do it? Right. That was number one. Number two, I wasn't trying to prove anything. And number three, I honestly didn't think anybody would fucking care. I really honestly didn't. I wasn't doing this. This was like part of my spiritual thing. Like this, I mean, this is one record. This EP is the first of 4 that are up here. And the next 3 are going to be more concentrated on original stuff. Most likely the stuff I originally recorded before I got to that place that you have now. So I'm almost working in a way backwards, because I've got 4 covers in mind. I've got 4 ways I'm going to explain it. I've got, you know, at least, you know, 12 songs to put on these records, if not more, and whatever comes out. I mean, I've got all kinds of shit in my brain. I want to make it like a tough 70s rock and roll record at one point. I'm going to do it. And because I love that era of rock and roll. I love Slade. I love T-Rex. I love Kiss. You know, that was a very big part of punk rock, you know? I mean, Slade were the first fucking skinhead band, for Christ's sake.
Right.
You know, so it's like, you know, so to me, it's very natural, you know? And it's street and rock and roll. And that in that umbrella, I see punk rock. I see all that stuff that I aforementioned, the reggae, everything. That's just rock and roll. It's just a different form of it. It's like Brett Gurewitz just said to me, if there's music that your kids are listening to that you don't like, that's the new punk rock. And I fucking blew my mind. Yeah. And like my oldest, who's 14 and traditionally just has loved Slayer and Exodus and all the Barrier thrash, you know, he just went to see Playboy Cardi just recently. And he went with one of his little skater buddies, and because he's all skatered out, and you know, his shit. And went by himself. He's 14 years old. He went to the Bill Graham Civic or whatever auditorium there, and got in the pit. And fucking when he came out, he was drenched in a pile of sweat. He's like, I just went for the chaos. And I said, what did you think about the pit? Yeah. Like, I'm just like curious to what he says. So I love the energy, man. It feels like I'm like letting go. And I'm just like, okay, well, maybe it'd be nicer to your brother. But, but like I said, that's why I got attracted to this kind of music, because I felt like it was a release. And I said, how you're getting it is rad. I never, you know, and so if he's going to fucking Playboy Cardi, or if he's going to fucking Slayer, which he saw when he was like 9 years old, you know, and he saw so many fucking bands when he was like 5. It's like the kid doesn't even, you know, he's forgotten more. Yeah, absolutely. You know, Metallica, you know, hanging out with James Hetfield, you know, like you don't care, you know, it's just whatevs. But you know, I remember one time. Oh, this is a funny story. So we were playing up in Vancouver, and we had a day off when Metallica was playing, and then Metallica had a day off when we were playing, and we had the day off second. So anyways, we're planning on to go to each other's shows, right? Yeah. Because we had just done this tour in South America, and we sort of rekindled the friendship after whatever 20 some odd years. And I, you know, would see Lars and I'd see James from time to time at different places, you know, whatever. And James comes into the bus and he's hanging out, and I got both of my boys with me, and Wolfgang's wearing, because he had the Metallica shirt from the night before. James sits down and I'm introducing everybody, and he says, James says, because James has got kids, and he's like, hey, Wolfgang. He goes, hey man, nice to meet you. And Wolfgang's rocking his Metallica shirt, and he goes, nice shirt. And Wolfgang's like, yeah, thanks. I'm just kind of like doing one of these. So I'm like, whoa, bro. Yeah, right. I go, no. You gotta show this man. And James is laughing because, you know, he's got kids. He understands. And, sure. You know, but it's just like those little experiences that these guys have had. Not a lot of kids would get, obviously. Right. But, you know, the fact that he's going and searching out whatever his energetic thing is fucking rad to me. You know, because you got to go let them do their thing. You got to go let them experience and stumble and fail, like I said. Yeah. Or find out what fits with them. You know what I mean? And whatever fits with them, I'm going to support. I don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? It's like, I found my shit and I'm better off for it. Right. So you're going to find whatever that is for you. It's fine. Yeah, I battled that. So my daughter and your son are roughly the same age. And so I battled that for a while, like fighting it or wanting to steer her in the direction of the stuff that I wanted her to listen to, because I know how important it is for me. And she's been to a bunch of shows and met a bunch of people and has no idea how cool it is, because it's what she grew up with. She doesn't care. And so I started to fight against that for a while, but sort of more recent years, I started to think about the music that I listened to and how that was sort of rebelling against my parents or whatever, but it wasn't, because it's all rock and roll. And so I wasn't listening to Springsteen, I was listening to Rancid. But so I sort of just I feel like that's almost similar, because And I'm not saying that we're anything like Bruce Springsteen, but Bruce Springsteen really writes about real shit. And I feel like maybe that's the connection.
Once you sort of view it from 10,000 feet or whatever, it's like, oh, it's all the same neighborhood. And I know that I listened to like late 80s hip hop and R&B and whatever, because I was 10, 12 years old at the time. And so it was right in my wheelhouse. And so I've kind of just gotten accepting, like, she can listen to whatever she wants. I'm not going to steer the car that way, but I've sort of like come to at peace with like the stuff she wants to listen to. Although it's funny because I was flipping through the radio, I was going to put on whatever pop channel she likes to listen to on the way to school, and I passed a Nirvana song, and she's like, "Oh, put that song back." I said, "Wait, you like that?" She said, "Yeah, I like that song. I have it on my Spotify." I went, holy, it was this weird moment for me. It's like, oh, she got to be 13 years old. Now she likes the shit I listened to when I was 13.
Right. Well, but that's the funny thing. It's like, I've had experiences similar to that, because like I never was a Nirvana guy. Like I understand their importance and whatever, but they never like struck that nerve with me. And then Wolfgang was learning territorial pissing.
Yeah.
And they were playing it downstairs because my son's a drummer, Wolf plays guitar, and they're playing it downstairs. And I was like, that's a fucking rad riff.
Yeah.
I go, what the fuck is that? And he's like, oh, it's a Nirvana song. I'm like, what do you mean it's a Nirvana song? And how do you know about fucking Nirvana, right?
Yeah.
I said, no, it's a song called Territorial Pissing. And so I went to that song and checked it out. I'm like, fuck, this is actually a really good track, right? Everything else, I'm not, I've tried to check out more, and I was like, whatever. But my point is that like they've actually have turned me on to stuff that I never. Hey, what's the kid that Joe? What's the kid that died? The 21-year-old that Soren was obsessed with? Juice WRLD.
Juice WRLD. Yes, he died in the Chicago airport. Yeah, I happened to.
Correct.
Yeah.
So my then I guess he might have been 8 years old at the time. He was all into Juice WRLD. And he was playing it all the time, and I was like, this kid is fucking great. And then I found out he passed away, and I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
Like here's a legit dude who's connecting with me. You know what I mean? He's he could be my kid, right? But he's connecting with me in this way that like he had that power. You know what I'm saying? And
you can tell he's been through some shit. You know what I mean? Like, and the way he processed. Yeah, he was great.
But if I try to play fucking, some White Lines or some Public Enemy for my kids, they're like, this is whack.
Exactly.
So, and I'm just like, Public Enemy is not whack.
Right.
First of all. So, but anyways, like my dream, I would love to like start a band with Ice-T. I think that would be some shit. I think that would be some next level.
I feel like
shit.
That's in his wheelhouse.
I think so too. I mean, I know he's got Body Count, and I got Rancid and stuff, but I feel like if you can mesh those worlds,
it's like Lollapalooza.
Well, but I mean, I think like it could be legit shit because he ain't afraid to speak his mind.
Yeah,
I ain't afraid
absolutely.
to speak my mind. We get together, bam. I feel like that could be some shit. Maybe I don't know. I've met him once. We've talked. We know of each other. I actually saw him perform when I was 11 years old with my friend Wade Mendoza, and it was at the One Step Beyond. It was Ice-T, Egyptian Lover, Africa Bambaataa, and the Soul Sonic Force, and Houdini.
Wow!
And I'd never been to a show like that in my life, and I was literally the only white kid there.
Yeah.
But like, and I had a little mohawk, and I just remember that was drawing a lot of the attention. But I was with my buddy Wade. His dad was a Vietnam vet, and he was so cool. And he had all, I remember because he had all these Uzis and shit. But like he would always invite us in, and he had, there was a lot of the kids, right? And he always took a liking to me and made me like feel like part of the family. And when they went to the show, because Wade was more into the hip hop stuff, like that's how I heard Run DMC for the first time. That's how I heard all of that old hip hop for the first time. I was like 11, and then I was turning him on to GBH and Discharge. I don't think he was really getting it, but
right.
My point is that like that's how I got exposed to that all,
Sure.
But my kids don't like it. But whatevs, it's still my shit.
Yeah, but then someday they will. Someday they'll stumble into it. Whether it's stumbling through your old record collection, it like, I don't know. The brain chemistry changes, I think, at some point, and the stuff that you liked before you don't like, and then you sort of underappreciate stuff at a different level.
Well, I feel like, from my experience, once I could start getting like boners, that's when I wanted more aggressive music. That's really when I feel like that's when I really went there. I mean, I always liked rock and roll, but when I started getting into Discharge and Crucifix, and I was maybe popping rods. I don't know.
Well, that probably lines up. Yeah.
Maybe. Sorry.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, frankly, it's that way for a lot of us, right? That 12, 13-year-old era is like, that becomes the music. And there is actually, some guy wrote a book about why the music that you like when you're at a certain age of your development is the music that sticks with you forever. I forget the name of it. It's on my nightstand, but there are sort of biological reasons for the stuff that gives you joy at certain ages when your brain chemistry is changing. And obviously 12, 13, it's like all different parts of your brain are lighting up. But the stuff that gives you sort of comfort or that you can relate to then becomes like, you form these pathways in your brain that's always going to be the stuff. Like, I'll go back and listen to Tribe Called Quest song from 1990 that I probably haven't heard in 15 years, but I can still it still makes me happy. I remember the first time I heard it in my parents' basement. I can still recite most of the words, but there are biological reasons why that happens, not to get all like dorky and whatever, but that's my natural resting state.
Well, it's funny because for whatever reason, you mentioned that band and I started thinking about Wyclef Jean, right? And I remember one time we played this festival, it was in the 90s, and it was like with some of the black metal bands like Emperor and shit like that, you know what I mean? And I think like it was like some techno band, The Orb, was headlining this whole fucking thing. And
is this here or is this overseas?
No,
like
this is like in Sweden or something.
Yeah.
And we played with the Fugees, and I think we were the kind of only bands that were kind of like that kind of thing. And I remember, because Wyclef was music, he liked all kinds of shit, right?
Yeah.
And I remember we went and we watched Emperor, and they were doing their thing with the corpse paint and the whole fucking thing, and he just looked at me. He's like, "Yo, this shit's next level," and I'm like, "Fuck yeah!" Like,
yeah.
So it's funny because how you say it, as far as the aggressive music, I think how we find it and how we stick with it. It's always going to like sort of manifest in different ways in the music. Like, Cannibal Corpse sounds nothing like Exodus, which sounds nothing like Judas Priest, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But it all starts with Motorhead, right? So it's like, that's like the gateway drug to hard music. Like, it doesn't matter what hard music you like. If you don't have Motorhead in the mix, then you're fucked. If there's no Motorhead, there's no modern day hard music. I'm sure we would have gotten there, but it needed that catalyst of that band, right? And I think it's one of those bands that everybody, back in the day, the punks claimed them and the fucking metalheads claimed them, so maybe that's where the beef starts. But long story short, I feel like, having that experience with him, just in seeing this aggressive music, and identifying with him and him identifying with me, like, we're watching some shit right now. You know what I mean? It's like, that was pretty cool.
Absolutely. I don't want to take up too much of your afternoon. I just realized that we're over like an hour, and I want to be mindful, respectful of that. But I'm
having a good time. So
well, I appreciate that. I'm trying to think of. I didn't even write questions down this time. I said, because I've talked to you before, it was a few years ago, was when Holger Dansk came out. I said, what? I went into all these questions and I said, what? I didn't even talk about any of the questions because we just had like a better conversation that way. I said, you know what? I'm going to just not even go in with questions. I'll have a few bullet points and then we'll just sort of go. And we've hit on a lot of them, but one of the things that, so you guys obviously just wrapped up the Boston to Berkeley tour with Rancid and Dropkick and the Bronx. And what's your take on being out there again? How was that experience being back out in the world now that things are theoretically open?
Well, first and foremost, it's human nature that the show must go on and you must survive, right? And I think this pandemic hit a lot of people in a lot of different ways, and I think it hit musicians. It seemed like musicians and clubs and club workers and techs, and they were the last people on anybody's fucking mind. Politicians weren't paying attention to those people. And a lot of musicians make their living and how they put food on their table. And it's not just guys like me or anybody else. I mean, there's thousands of people you've never even fucking heard of that are dependent on playing a gig to feed their fucking family, right? And it goes from country western stars, it goes all on the gamut of musicians. And there's, as we all know, there's a million different types of it. So if you eliminate all of that, that's a whole segment of your workforce that can't, put food on the table for their family. So, number one, that was challenging, I think, for a lot of people. I mean,
Sure.
the guys that are my techs can't find work. They, that's, what I mean? And it's like, if you're tour managing a band, that means you basically can't work in the real world. You know what I mean?
Right.
You have to,
Right.
you know what I mean? You have a certain skill set and it's really good for this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So I'm not saying that, I mean, I'm trivializing, but I think that, like, just being back out there, the biggest thing that was I guess the weirdest thing is like not having anybody in the back. So it's like, you can't have guests in the backstage. You can't visit the other band's dressing room. You can't do all these things because you're trying to keep everybody safe, right? Because you don't know,
Sure.
there's so much bullshit out there. You don't know what's real and you don't know what's not real. So it's just better to be just safe, right?
Yeah. Right.
So, because one fucking opposing thing is saying, you can't do this, because if you wear a mask, then you're a communist. And this guy says, well, if you don't wear a mask, then you're a Trump supporting Nazi, right?
Yeah.
So it's like,
right. Right.
So all that bullshit aside, and that all that fucking polarized shit out there, it's like, you're not visiting your family, you're not seeing your friends. Half the reason why you do tours is because you run into these people along the way. You're saying, hey dude, you can come to the show, but I can't see you. And sometimes you would have one opinion and sometimes you would have another, and you just be like, look, I don't give a shit about your fucking opinion. You can come, I can't see you. That's the facts.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So that was one big thing that was like, and then you couldn't visit anybody on show days. So if you wanted to go get a haircut or whatever, you do it on your own, whatever. So you stayed safe. Just wash your ass, wash your hands, and try to eat good. You know what I mean? So it's like, I mean, that's the one thing that out of this whole fucking pandemic, no one's ever talking about your immune system and how you could do this with food and the shit that you put in your body, right?
Right.
It's like, no, let's fix it with this.
Yeah.
Take this, you'll be fine. So that was kind of the strange thing, because you're not really surrounded by that element, that energy, but I think what it did for the band, I think we had some of probably the most focused shows we had ever had in our lives, and it was almost as if, because you weren't having all these distractions, we were actually not, to say that we were getting to know each other is not the actual correct term, because we know each other, but because we're very intimate, there's an intimate relationship between all of us, and when you talk about intimacy, I'm not talking about, people think about sex. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like the core inside of you, right?
The actual connection. Yeah.
Correct. So I feel like, we got more intimate with each other. We got more close with each other because there wasn't the distraction of who's got the right pass. This guy's bitching because his name wasn't left at the door, or whatever the fuck it was.
Yeah. Right.
We were on the bus, the four of us, most of the day.
Yeah.
Because you can't go out and be in the world,
right?
Right? Because you don't want to harm anybody. That's why that tour went out basically without incident.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like a lot of these tours were a weekend falling off.
Yeah.
Bands weekend falling off. Well, probably not washing their asses. I don't know. I wasn't there. But my point is that like the biggest change was that. So I feel like it almost like helped us in a way to really sort of focus who we are, what we're doing there. And it wasn't unique to hear somebody yell from the back, hey, I just want to let you guys know I love you dudes. I'm so happy to be here doing this with you.
Yeah.
And you forget sometimes, what it's hard to be distracted, hard not to be distracted out there, especially.
Right.
But, and just in the world. But yeah, out there, it's almost, double time. But I feel like, because you got the show, you got the family, you got the audience, you got, all the whole fucking rigmarole.
Right.
And so the connection of the band, it's not that it was lost. It's just, it was almost like it was recultivated. I don't know how to explain it, but we grew. We were kind of here, and then if I could squish my hands any further in,
Yeah.
that's where we grew too.
Well, it's sort of what you were talking about before, when you're at the beginning of the pandemic, when you had gone through the divorce and your mom was sick, and so realizing the things that are important and your sort of connection to those things internally, but being on the road with the four guys kind of makes you do that collectively as a band. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, and I think that's a very fair assessment. I mean, I think that like when you go through things and you start realizing what's important, it's like when my brother passed away, I don't necessarily know if I really took it all the way in, and it wasn't until like my mother my mother's passing that I kind of relived my brothers, and I acted so much differently with my mom than I did with my brother. There was obviously a lot of maturity in 20 years, but or so. Actually, it was about 19 years, but like I faced it differently, and it was only because of time and because of like self introspection, you know. And it was only that self-realization that got me to that place of like, this is not happening to me, like I said, you know, this is happening to them. It's now something I have to deal with. And you know what? I'm more than prepared and equipped to deal with this. I have the emotional skills, you know, I have the physical skills, and I have the mental skills to show up for this person in their time of need, on their passing to whatever's waiting for them on the other side, right? So, you know, what was hitting me at that time was a gamut of emotions, and thankfully I had a great partner there, you know, to help me through this stuff, and you know, help me grow and get closer to that spiritual thing that I have, you know, and had all these realizations and made a lot of peace with my brother, you know, peace that I didn't think I need to make. It just kind of came up.
Yeah.
And then peace with my mom, you know, because my mom was witty as fuck, you know, and she was so funny, even to her dying breath, you know, and just I could make, it was like the sense of humor that my mom and I shared. It was like no holds barred. It was fucking core.
Yeah.
And I remember when she was at her sickest, and I knew that she needed like a little pick me up. I said, you know, I kind of set her up. I said, hey mom, I go, you're losing a lot of weight. She goes, yeah, I'm on a new diet. I go, yeah, what's it called? She goes, cancer. And I said, well, it's good for me. You want to know why? She goes, why? And I go, because they charge by the pound at the crematorium. You know what I mean?
Which is dark as hell, except that if you're going through that, to me, that's funny. But
that's the thing. That's the bond, you know, and that's the most fucked up thing that you could say.
Right.
But the fact that she had that self, and, you know, she knows them, you know, I mean, but that's how fucked up we were. That's, you know, I mean, in a good way, you know, that's the sense of humor. You know, I remember when one time I was at her house one time early on when Salvation was kind of blowing up, and she was about to retire, and she asked me if I could help her out a little bit, and I said yeah. So whatever, I'm in the chair or whatever, and Salvation video comes on MTV, and she comes up to me and she goes, I hate this fucking song. You know what I mean? It's like just shit like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's the relationship that we had, and we kept that humor, and we kept that connection like that, you know, because that's where we related a lot. I mean, we loved each other and took care of each other, of course.
Right.
But like there's also this deeper thing, you know, where we could have that sense of humor with each other, and that's the true fucking connection. That's the true intimacy, you know, that you want.
Right.
You know, and she laughed her ass off, and I laughed my ass off, and it was like, it's sort of like diffused the heaviness that was happening, you know.
It acknowledges the elephant in the room, but you can also joke about the elephant in the room.
Well, that's the thing. That's what humor and comedy does. It recognizes something and it diffuses it, because there's so much shit that's so divisive in this world today, and people make it a divisive issue out of a non-divisive issue. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's fucking ridiculous. And humor was always there to sort of diffuse all that and make us all take a look at ourselves and laugh at each other, laugh at our differences, laugh at our different experiences, laugh at everything, and realize that it's not that fucking important, you know. And music does the same fucking thing. It might have a message, you might tune into it, or you might tune out of it, you know what I mean? And sometimes it has a statement, sometimes it's just for shits and giggles, you know. So like I said, even in the Gods and Guns song, it's fucked up, but I'm right. I mean, come on. How arrogant is that to fucking say? It's a little bit more tongue in cheek. You know? So, and I think people who know me know that about me. You know what I'm saying? So
did that time period, especially with your mom, I know that material didn't end up on To Victory, but did that sort of inspire other, like, did that whole situation bring out a bunch of other songs? Did you find yourself able to write while going through that, or was it too much like in the moment and you have to kind of give yourself time to process how you'd even write stuff like that?
no, I mean, I think the writing was the processing, you know, and the song, why I redid Motherland, because I wrote that song, obviously that's for on the old From Casuals Olga Dance. Why I redid it was almost like a goodbye, you know, and because that song was originally written for her. Because I literally, like, when it was all coming down and you know, and I think I mentioned it in the liner notes, but I just said, hey, do you want to, like, any kind of religious thing? She looked at me and she said, I'm a fucking heathen. You know, I don't want any of that shit. Like, I'm going where I'm going, you know?
Right.
And to me, the fact that she's, you know, she didn't all of a sudden she was her authentic self to the day she fucking died.
Yeah, right.
Like, how the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, I know I've had moments where I think, well, if I'm dying, I'm praying to Muhammad, I'm praying to Buddha, I'm praying to God, I'm praying to fucking
whichever, right,
whatever. Like, I'm just, you know, wherever I'm going, you know, whoever, which what, you know, was anybody right? Well,
which one of you's going to take me? Right.
Yeah, I want to cover my bases.
Right.
But I think that, like, you know, going through all of that stuff, I mean, pain is definitely the touchstone to a lot of creativity for me, you know, and there's always been a lot of anger and a very dark side of myself. And I've talked about it. I've never talked about it to the extent that I'm talking about it now, but that was a part of myself I wasn't going to share with anybody, right? I wasn't going to share. But now, because I was not, maybe I was a little bit, I would preempt certain thoughts or certain things because of the reaction. I'm like, now I don't give a fuck. Now I'm just like, whatever, fucking blow me. You know what I mean? I don't care. So, and to live my life like that now, because what I have is not something I've ever had. I have, you know, my family environment, my home is filled with love and respect, you know, and accountability, you know, and that's something that I've never had, you know, and I have that now. And it took a different perspective, and it took me to be willing enough and open-minded enough to listen to a perspective of someone who's 10 years younger than me, right? And you can hear it. So
right on cue, by the way.
Right on cue. Boom. She's quick. But so now that, you know, that I'm seeing this different idea, I'm basically with a millennial, right? And I'm seeing that point of view, and I'm understanding a little bit more. It's helping me understand myself. It's helping me understand my kids. It's helping me understand my relationship. And honestly, you know, tapping into those places for creativity is easier to get to. And I normally start everything that I've ever done with a sense of desperation, a sense of hate, sense of judgment. And, you know, that's traditionally how I've always rooted up. I don't like fucking fascists. So I write a fucking record called Holger Dansk. And then you know what I mean? I don't like fucking racism, right? So avenues and alleyways. I don't like fucking, you know, people who discriminate for gender and all that shit. So it's like, you know, there's songs about unity. I don't like any of that stuff. It's all separation. I've been that way my whole fucking career. You know what I mean? It's like, look, you want to know where I stand politically? Listen to a fucking record I made. You know what I mean? It's pretty simple. So, you know, but the thing about it is, and what I've learned to understand is that fascism, like we talked about, can happen from both sides of the fucking aisle. I'm sorry, it can. And my mom growing up in a situation where there was fascism brought upon her, knows that firsthand. So I learned that, you know, I learned how to look at those things differently. But I feel like where I'm coming from now is a place of, like, real in the soul, you know, like what I'm writing about, what I'm doing is about, like, maybe more of what spiritually is happening for me. And it's constructed in a way that maybe you might not know, or maybe you will, but it's more personal, maybe I could say, you know, in that way.
I think even though people are familiar with the songs that are on To Victory, they sound more personal. I mean, even Skunx, right? It's still plugged in, electric guitar, Marshall stack, whatever, but it sounds more personal. I think that you're able to convey that with the vocals the vocals and the lyrics match. And so it sounds more personal that way.
Well,
Then obviously it's a good song with the band, but
thank you.
it sounds more personal when it's just you and a guitar, but it's not like hippie-ish, like introspective. It's like it's still a badass song, but it's personal
Well,
that
thank
way.
you.
And you start to feel
Well,
it.
yeah, and I feel like, becoming a little older and looking at what I needed to do, the survival mechanisms that I, picked up along the way, the gang mentality that I've always had and I always will have. That's always going to be big parts of me, right? Because that's who I am. It's where I come from. It doesn't mean that like I'm any better or any different. I've just searched for my family or looked for a family outside of the one that, let's say, God gave to me, right?
Yeah, right.
So for me, Skunx is personal because, the the guy who started that whole thing on Halloween this year, we just spread his ashes in the ocean.
Oh, wow.
He was 55 years old. Most of those guys that I grew up with that turned me on to this thing called punk rock.
Yeah.
I mean, his name was Sean Gregonis, right? And he was in 1979, he was from San Luis Obispo. He moved to our neighborhood. I remember walking down the street. He's got X shaved in his head. He's carrying a boombox. He's got a white t-shirt. He's got blue Levi's 501s and boots and rolled up jeans. And I'll always remember that visual.
Yeah.
I'll always remember that visual. And
Yeah.
he's blasting out some Dead Kennedys or something, whatever it was. I don't know. I couldn't tell you because I didn't know the music.
Yeah.
I just remember the big X shaved in his head.
Right.
And my brother gravitated to him. And that's how I really got to know Sean. And Sean, this Skunx, Skins, Punks, and Drunks, right? It was about unity, right? And it was about all of us kids in that neighborhood, that were into punk rock. And we all got together or that kind of stuff. And we formed a bond. And there was Bulky, and there was Sean, and there was my brother, and there was Rob, and there was, the list can go on and on and on. And I was always the youngest one. So that's always going to be a core part of me. And I'm out there in the Bay and we're spreading his ashes. And I'm thinking, this guy played such a pivotal point in my life, even though like later on in his life, because of addictions and things like that, he ostracized, who was ostracized from a lot of us, but he still played a fucking important part of my life. And he brought me into this space of how I think, my sense of humor, the way I look at the world. Like, even though he was like, maybe 5 years older than me, it was still a huge, gigantic influence
absolutely.
on me. I mean, the first Oi record, that was the record that's still in my collection, was his record that he gave to me for my 15th birthday.
Yeah.
So it's like, these little things that I hold on to very dearly to, but I hold on to them in a different way. And it's a more place of, a more soulful place. It's not about protection or strength anymore. It's about love and honor. And I feel like, that song in particular, Skunx, the reason why I revisited it is because that song is the same thing that it was when I first did it to now this new way that I've done it. Maybe it's not so new, but my point is that it's still the same thing. And that's the one song that, like, throughout my, musical thing, that I feel has summed me up in the best manner. There's been many songs that I feel have summed the way I think and who I am up, but that song in particular is about a pivotal point in my life where my life switched, where the Kiss records went into the shelf. You know what I mean? Where the punk records now made their way in. Yeah. Where I started bleaching my jeans to my mom's dismay. I just spent $25 on your jeans.
Sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, this is the thing that's still here, and it's a big part of who I am, and it's how I view the world. And it's a good place to start from. And for me, obviously I see the world in a lot broader, bigger way through experience and through travel and, visiting different countries and seeing different cultures or seeing how people live, and working with different artists, whatever it was, So, I feel like, that song in particular is the core center. And that's why I put that song in the very last one, because it's always going to be part of the repertoire, but it was like the period, like I said, at the end of the sentence. You know, it was kind of like, okay, here's what it's been, here's what it's like. I've taken you from Kiss, from me being 4 years old, staring at Gene Simmons, the Gene Simmons poster on Kurt Heindale's fucking ceiling when he's spitting blood, to like the UK subs, you know, which I was a part of, you know, one of the 1,000 guitar players they had. I'm still there.
Right.
I'm on the wiki page.
You are on the wiki page, can confirm.
So, you know, and then to the Bastards, to the Casuals, and then here I am now. And, you know, the Rancid thing I thought spoke for itself, so I didn't really need to revisit that. And it was something that's like, I just thought, you know, this is a song that would feel good in this realm. And see, like another song that I would love to redo, maybe it'll appear on another, you know, one of these EPs, is Holger Dance. I feel like that's one of the best. I mean, from the intro thing to the ensemble, anyways, the intro, I forget fucking what's that fucking title. I fucking came up with the title. Why do I fucking this is hold on a second. Okay, now I can talk to you better. But anyways, I can see you a whole lot fucking better.
Yeah, right.
But
it's probably better to keep them off.
Yeah, ensemble. Sorry. So from that part to Holger Dance, that's supposed to be a thing, you know? And I feel like, you know, what I was writing about and the information that I was finally receiving from my mother, because my mother never talked really about, you know, the war and these things with us. You know, she never really truly like opened up about that. You know, it wasn't until, you know, later on in life, or maybe it was a maturity thing, I don't know, for us. But to really understand the gravity of how our family was involved, and how these uncles and aunts and people that I'll never meet, you know, or never have the experience or the pleasure of knowing, were taken away because of fascism, right? We're taken away because of this idea of, you can't think that way, you can't look that way, you can't pray to that person, you can't. I mean, think about it. It's like, it's insane to me, right? So that would be one song that I would maybe try to revisit, because I feel like that is another one that kind of sums up things. But yeah, Skunx, yeah.
I think I'll link to all the videos and wherever everybody can find it. People should go buy this from Pirates Press or from Lars's website. Like I said, I'll put all the links down below. Cool. Thanks for chatting again. It's genuinely a pleasure. It's only been a couple times now, but you're one of my favorite people to talk and do this sort of thing with. And so, like I said, I'll link to everything. Everybody should go buy To Victory and everything that comes out after that. And we can certainly talk about those things when the time comes. But
well, look at my kids have sneaker addictions now. So if you buy To Victory, it's just going to buy a pair of Jordans, and I'd really appreciate that.
Or people can buy stuff from Lars's locker, which I think is one of the coolest things.
Well,
I never.
That's the thing.
Like it always happens when I'm not checking my phone for a while, or I'm at work or something like that, and I look back, it's like sold. Fuck, that would have been cool. That would have been cool.
Well, but the thing about it is, I got when my mom passed, you know, her kitchen was the size of like my dining room table, and she had like 9 kitchens worth of shit in her fucking. And I was just like, I cannot do this to my kids. Plus, you know, 10,000 records. I'm never gonna listen to this stuff. Like, so why can't anybody else enjoy it? Like, I'm kind of just cleaning house and getting rid of like clothes and guitars and all kinds of stuff, you know. So that's where that's coming from.
Check out Lars's locker. Check out the wrestling podcast. Check out To Victory. You know where to find Rancid. I don't have to tell you that. But Lars, thank you so much for doing this.